Hello and welcome to the How Not to Screw Up Your Kids podcast, the bucket emptying episodes. So, pour yourself a cuppa, find a comfy seat and enjoy the conversation. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Han, psychologist and parenting expert. And in today's episode, we've got a really honest question. Thank you for a start for this particular question. And it's simply, help, my children want me to play. I don't know how to. I don't enjoy it. What do I do? Okay, so just incredible to be so honest about it. And I think there isn't a definitive answer. There isn't a best solution. I think for me, the way that I would probably approach it is, first of all, that self-acceptance, particularly because I think one of the things we find is that our children don't always necessarily play the way that we do. When I was younger, hard to believe it, given that I love dresses and all of the rest of it, but I was considered a tomboy. So when people used to come over to visit us from Egypt, my sister would always be bought a typical kind of girl toy, dolls, those sorts of things. And I was always bought typical boy toys, things like, I don't know, Meccano, Lego. Yeah. So in my world and the way that I kind of was as a child was very logical, very I didn't do a huge amount of massive role play, certainly not in terms of groups of children. I loved playing post office, but only in my room without my sister because she was annoying. Okay. So when my children then when I had children, I had to really work hard at playing in a way that I knew was going to be developmentally fulfilling and enriching for my children, as well as responding to the way that they wanted to play too. So what's really important to recognize, first of all, is that A, that you've been really honest about it, and B, that we've got lots of sort of ways that we might typically go about interacting and our natural tendencies. My children didn't do a huge amount of art and craft initially because it wasn't something that I did naturally. It wasn't something that I could connect to a lot of my experiences as a child. I don't genuinely remember doing anything arts and crafts other than at school in my childhood. So of course we bring with us all of this when we then become a parent, and then we will tend to go to what would be our natural tendencies. So A, great that you've acknowledged that. B, also acknowledge that you will have certain tendencies and certain leanings that you will typically approach when it comes to interacting and playing with your children. And then when your children do ask you to play, I think there's probably some things that are worth knowing. Number one is that our children ask us to play and we're often super, super busy, or we don't necessarily know how to play that game and we don't necessarily feel like we can particularly engage. We often feel that when our children want us to play, that it's going to take up huge amounts of time. So A, it's knowing that it's not actually going to take up anywhere near as much time as you think it's going to. And B, you've got a real opportunity to model being out of your comfort zone with your children. So if they ask you to play and you don't really enjoy doing it and you really don't quite know how to engage with it, be honest. I wouldn't necessarily say you don't want to do it, but I would say, this is quite new to me. I don't really know what I'm doing and I'm worried about making a mistake. Can you teach me? Tell me what I'm meant to do. I'm not quite sure about this. This doesn't quite feel comfortable for me. It's not something that I'm used to. How might I make it easier? All of that sort of language, because what you're doing is, A, you're being supremely honest. You're being you. You're being authentic. You're being vulnerable. But what you're modeling to your children is, when I'm in a situation that I feel uncomfortable, I ask questions. I let people know. I ask them to help me and I take their feedback on board. And what's crucial about that is that we know that we always learn so much more by teaching. So what your children are doing is that they are teaching you how to play their game. They're teaching you how to grow with your confidence in a particular situation. They're teaching you how to go out of your comfort zone and feel more comfortable with what they're asking you to do. And actually, that is incredibly powerful. For all the lectures or the books or the sort of videos that you could encourage your children to read around doing things out of their comfort zone, this is so much more powerful because they're active in something that they really enjoy, something which they're really passionate about, whatever that game may be, and they're instructing you as their parent. So I think that those things are really crucial. It's also really important to remember that whilst we might not want to engage in that game, maybe we don't like it, but play is basically how our children learn. That's their place of work. That's how they navigate new situations. That's how they try things out. That's how they make mistakes. That's how they fail. And so if we can really begin to reframe how that looks in our mind, so reframing this notion that we're going to be there for hours and hours, reframing that it's something that we're super uncomfortable with and we don't enjoy, and reframing it instead as I've got a real opportunity now to connect with my child, to model for my child, and also to help those neural connections, to help them learn, to help them build that muscle within that brain, within that specific game that they want me to play in. And I can be an active participant in that. And by being actively part of that, you're creating this connection, which maybe with your 2-year-old and you're spooning the teddy bears might not feel like a huge amount, but them knowing that you can respond to their requests, to be present when they need you to engage with them and to see things through their lens makes it so much easier as they reach more challenging and difficult years to know that actually, when I've needed you, when I've asked you, you have been there for me. You've stepped in, you've stopped what you were doing and engaged with me. And I know that you are someone that I can rely on. You are someone who is really trying to see things from my perspective. And that really opens up a whole kind of navigational process. And it doesn't mean that when we're playing with our children that we can't encourage them to try some different variations with their game. Maybe bring in a bit of our own character and a bit of our own personality. And maybe encourage them to do some of the activities that we would love them to do that might help develop and nurture their emotional well-being. But it starts with us stepping in to their world and what they're asking us to do as we help them with that modeling and that mirroring of what a friendship is about. It's about come in and see my world. And once you've seen my world, I can then step into yours. So I hope that that's helped you. And, thanks again for being so supremely honest. And hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you. As ever, if you have enjoyed this episode, I would be ever so grateful if you could like, rate and review this podcast so that others can find us and we can spread the love. So until next time,